To the All-Star break, here's a few hitters I'd look to drop this week in your fantasy leagues. The first guy, Reyes of the Cleveland Guardians. I've mentioned Reyes as a drop a few weeks ago, and it just has been a bad season for him. I know last season he hit 30 home runs, but this year he's not even going to come close to that if he continues on this pace. On the season, 8 home runs, 26 RBIs, 21 runs scored, a stolen base, a .216 average, and a .259 on-base percentage. So Reyes, we know he don't draw many walks. We know that on-base to batting average ratio is low for him this season. But he's a guy a lot of people are hoping that he could break out in the second half of the season and put up big numbers, but I just don't see it. And he's been struggling the whole season. July 10th at Kansas City, 0 for 4. July 11th versus the White Sox, 3 for 4. 2 runs, an RBI, a stolen base. July 12th versus the White Sox, doubleheader, 1 for 7. July 13th versus the White Sox, 1 for 4 with a run. July 14th versus Detroit, 0 for 4. July 15th versus Detroit, 0 for 1. July 16th versus Detroit, 1 for 4. So right now he's not hitting the baseball for average, not showing power with only 8 home runs. And there's no reason to me that he's owned in 63% of fantasy leagues here as Reyes. So right now, I think he's an easy guy to drop. No doubt he could break out in the second half and get things going, but we haven't seen it all season from him. And it's not like at least he's got a high batting average with low homers and RBIs. He has none of that so far this season. The next guy is Jorge Soler of the Miami Marlins. So Soler, in his first season in Miami, it's been more of the same for him. 13 home runs, 34 RBIs, 31 runs scored, a .209 average, and a .299 on base. But over the last month of the season here for Soler, I know he's come off an injury as well. 1 homer, 4 RBIs, 2 runs scored, a .140 average, and a .208 on base. So right now owned in 54% of fantasy leagues. And he's another guy like Reyes that you're really only going to have him on your fantasy team for power. And this season, 13 home runs isn't horrible, but it's not a great thing where you're going to sacrifice a lot of categories and stuff just for the 13 home runs because his RBIs are low. His on-base isn't all that great at 300, and he's always been a low batting average guy over the last few seasons. So the last few games since he's returned here is Soler. July 15th versus Philly, 0 for 3. July 16th versus Philly, 0 for 3. And July 17th versus Philly, 0 for 3. So right now, came back for 3 games. All-Star break now for 4 days here. And we'll see if he could get things going versus Texas and Pittsburgh in the first few series back. But right here, it's been a tough season in his first year, like I mentioned, for him in Miami. Maybe second half he's healthy and gets things going, but right now he's not bringing much to the table for fantasy owners, and I would drop him this week here. So no doubt he could get hot in the second half, but right now he's a drop candidate. Next guy is Pham of the Cincinnati Reds. So Pham, I could see him being traded before that August 2nd deadline here, where a team that's obviously competing team for the playoff spot and trying to win a World Series would try to make a deal here for Pham. It could be a 3rd or 4th outfield or even a DH at times for their teams. On the season, 11 home runs, 36 RBIs, 7 stolen bases, 53 runs scored, a .242 average, and a .329 on base. But over the last month of the season, he's been pretty much non-existent for fantasy baseball. 2 home runs, 10 RBIs, 2 stolen bases, 15 runs scored, a .224 average, and a .296 on base. So Pham still owned, surprisingly, in 56% of fantasy leagues. And I think that's way too much. I think people, they're hoping he gets traded somewhere or thinks he could replicate what he did early in the season. But I just don't see it with Pham right now. He's been struggling. I know he could get traded and it'll help his fantasy value, especially if he goes to a team with a lot of good hitters, where right now in Cincinnati, he's one of the best hitters in the latter part of his career. But the last few games here for him, July 8th versus Tampa, 0 for 3. July 9th versus Tampa, 0 for 4 with the golden sombrero. July 10th versus Tampa, 2 for 5, 2 runs scored. July 12th at the Yankees, 0 for 3 with a run. July 13th at the Yankees, 1 for 5. July 14th at the Yankees, 1 for 5 with a run. And July 15th at St. Louis, 0 for 3 with a run. And the last 2 days, sat out the 16th at St. Louis. And then July 17th, it was a rained-out game before the All-Star break. So right now, Pham's in a slump. He's not getting anything going. This Red team, they've played a little bit better, including beating the Yankees, surprisingly, 2 out of 3, and also sweeping the Tampa Bay Rays. But right here, Pham's been struggling, and he's a guy, like I mentioned, in the latter part of his career here, and I don't think he's going to have many great games going forward over the next few weeks, as long as he stays in Cincinnati, where teams are now focusing in on him and getting him out and pitching him tougher. The next guy is William Contreras of the Atlanta Braves. So Contreras, he's had a good season, no doubt about it, But another guy, he's not playing every day, and he's been struggling over the last month of the season, even though it's been a small sample size of at-bats on the season. 11 home runs, 23 RBIs, 22 runs scored, a 260 average, 2 stolen bases, and a 345 on base. Are great numbers for a catcher, especially playing part-time this season. Only 154 at-bats, but over the last month of the season, it's been a struggle. 2 home runs, 6 RBIs, 4 runs scored in the stolen base. So right here, there's no reason to hold on to Contreras for many reasons. Travis d'Arnaud's been healthy so far this season. He's the catcher that's catching 5 days a week here for this Brave team. Contreras, they tried him in different positions. It didn't work in the outfield where they wanted to sacrifice defense for his bat, but he was just that bad in the outfield. And it's tough to own a player who's not playing every day. In the last month of the season, he's been slumping. So the only few games he's played recently, July 10th versus Washington, 2 for 4. July 13th versus the Mets, 0 for 4. July 15th at Washington, 1 for 3 with a rib. And July 17th at Washington, 0 for 4. So right, he is playing every 3-4 days as Contreras. Not hitting the baseball right now. And it's tough, no doubt about it, to only play a few days a week and try to get a rhythm as a hitter, especially catching as well. Now, while he's not playing every day and he's not hitting the baseball, just to keep him on your roster, there's no reason to keep him, and I'm surprised he's owned in 46% of fantasy leagues, and I would drop him this week. But if Travis d'Arnaud gets injured or he slumps and they play Contreras every day, he'll be one of the top pickups, no doubt about it, for fantasy owners. And the fifth and final hitter I look to drop this week's Hunter Renfro of the Milwaukee Brewers. So Renfro, he's been on and off the injured list over the last month and a half of the season, and he's returned recently. On the season, 13 home runs, 29 RBIs, 28 runs scored, stolen base, 243 average, and a 294 on base. But over the last month of the season, even though I know it's only been 40 at-bats on and off the injured list, like I mentioned, 2 home runs, 5 RBIs, a stolen base, 3 runs scored, a 205 average, and a 279 on base. So Renfro, I know last season was a great year for him, 31 home runs, 96 RBIs with a 260 average for the Boston Red Sox. But right here, I just don't see you with the Brew Crew this year. I know he got off to a decent start, but the injuries have slowed him down, and he definitely still don't look 100%. I know he had the hamstring injury and a little bit of a back as well, so the few games since he returned, July 12th at the Twins, 0 for 4, July 14th at the Giants, 1 for 4 with a stolen bag, July 15th at the Giants, 1 for 5, July 16th at the Giants, 1 for 3 with a run, July 17th at the Giants, 1 for 4 with 2 RBIs. So I know he's on a 4-game hitting streak, but he's not doing much here as Hunter Renfro, and I think these injuries have set him back. And like I mentioned, he's playing in a decent hitter's park, but it's nowhere like Fenway Park where he hit 31 home runs. So right now, I would drop Renfro since he really hasn't done much over the last month of the season. I know injuries have played a factor, but right now there's better options on the waiver wire this week. So that's a few hitters I would drop heading into the All-Star break here for the fantasy baseball season.